Story 1. It all started innocently enough. I had recently moved to a new city and was in desperate need of some furniture for my apartment. Being on a tight budget, I turned to Craigslist, hoping to find some good deals on second-hand items. Little did I know that this decision would lead me down a dark and terrifying path that I would never forget. I had been browsing through the furniture section for a few days, messaging various sellers and arranging meetings to check out their items. Most of these transactions went smoothly, and I managed to furnish my apartment on a shoestring budget. But there was one listing that caught my eye, and it would turn out to be the beginning of my nightmare. The listing was for a vintage dresser, and the photos made it look absolutely stunning. It had intricate carvings and a beautiful dark wood finish, and the price was unbelievably low. The only catch was that the seller insisted on meeting at their remote farmhouse, which was a considerable distance from the city. Despite my initial reservations, the allure of the dresser was too strong, and I agreed to the meeting. The day of the meeting arrived, and I set out early in the morning, armed with my phone and a friend's advice to share my location with them throughout the trip. The farmhouse was nestled deep in the countryside, and as I drove down winding, overgrown roads, a sense of unease began to creep over me. I had heard stories of Craigslist transactions gone wrong, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Finally, I reached the address provided in the listing. The farmhouse looked old and weathered, with peeling paint and overgrown vegetation. There was an eerie stillness in the air, and I hesitated for a moment before getting out of my car. I checked my phone one last time, ensuring my location sharing was active, and then approached the front door. I knocked, and after what felt like an eternity, the door creaked open slowly. A tall, thin man with greasy hair and an unsettling grin stood in the doorway. He introduced himself as Roger and invited me inside. As I stepped into the dimly lit farmhouse, a shiver ran down my spine. The air inside was heavy with an inexplicable sense of dread. Roger led me to a room at the back of the house, and my heart sank as I realized there was no dresser in sight. Instead, the room was filled with bizarre and unsettling objects, a collection of antique dolls with missing limbs, dusty old books with strange symbols, and rusted tools that looked like they belonged in a torture chamber. I tried to mask my discomfort, but Roger's unnerving smile never wavered. "I have something special to show you," he said, disappearing into another room. I considered making a quick exit, but something kept me rooted to the spot. The minutes dragged on, and the silence was punctuated only by the creaking of the old house. Finally, Roger returned, holding a small, ornate box. He set it on a table in front of me and slowly opened it to reveal a collection of vintage jewelry. My initial fear began to wane, replaced by curiosity. I examined the jewelry, admiring the intricate designs and the sparkle of gemstones. But then Roger's demeanor shifted. His smile turned sinister, and he leaned in closer, his eyes locked onto mine. "These pieces have a dark history," he whispered, his voice sending chills down my spine. "They say they're cursed, but I don't believe in curses, do you?" I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead as panic set in. I had to get out of there, and fast. I stammered out an excuse, saying that I had forgotten something in my car and needed to leave immediately. Roger's smile widened, and he made no attempt to stop me. As I hurried out of the farmhouse and back to my car, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had narrowly escaped a horrifying fate. Once I was safely back in my apartment, I couldn't stop thinking about the bizarre encounter. Who was Roger, and what was he really up to? I decided to do some digging, and what I discovered sent shivers down my spine. It turned out that Roger had a long history of posting strange Craigslist ads, always insisting on remote meetings and luring unsuspecting buyers to his farmhouse. Some had reported even more disturbing encounters, claiming that they had been drugged or held against their will. Terrified by what I had learned, I reported my encounter to the police, who launched an investigation into Roger's activities. They discovered a hidden basement in the farmhouse filled with evidence of his sinister deeds, restraints, disturbing photographs, and a journal detailing his twisted obsessions. Roger was arrested, and the farmhouse was condemned. It was a chilling reminder that the online world, while full of opportunities, also harbors dark and dangerous secrets. My Craigslist nightmare had turned into a cautionary tale, a reminder to always trust your instincts and never ignore that feeling in your gut when something doesn't seem right. As I look back on that harrowing experience, I can't help but shudder at the thought of what could have happened if I hadn't trusted my instincts and made a quick escape. It's a reminder that the line between the ordinary and the terrifying can be razor thin, and that sometimes, the most innocuous seeming Craigslist listings can hide unimaginable horrors. Story 2. I never believed the stories about creepy encounters on Craigslist until I found myself in the middle of one. It was a cold winter evening when I stumbled upon a listing that promised a secluded cabin retreat in the woods. The photo showed a cozy cabin surrounded by towering pine trees, and the description promised tranquility and solitude. I couldn't resist the allure of a weekend getaway, so I contacted the owner, a man named David. David responded promptly, his enthusiasm palpable through the screen. He claimed that the cabin was his family's secret paradise, and he wanted someone to appreciate it as much as they did. The rental price was unbelievably low, and he assured me it was available for the upcoming weekend. I decided to take the opportunity and made arrangements to meet David at the cabin that Friday afternoon. As I drove deeper into the woods, the towering trees cast long shadows over the winding road. The cabin's location seemed increasingly remote, but I trusted my GPS to guide me. Finally, I arrived at a small clearing, and there stood the cabin, just as it appeared in the photos. It was a quaint, two-story wooden structure, and a sense of serenity washed over me. David greeted me warmly, explaining that he had to leave for an emergency and handed me the keys. He left me with a few instructions about how to operate the generator for electricity, and then he was gone. As the sound of his car faded into the distance, I felt an unsettling wave of isolation wash over me. The cabin was miles away from civilization, and there was no cell phone reception. The first night was peaceful. I cozied up by the fireplace, sipping hot cocoa, and reading a book. The isolation felt like a refreshing break from the hustle and bustle of city life. But as the night grew darker, I began to notice strange sounds outside, rustling leaves, distant whispers, and something that sounded like footsteps on the cabin's porch. I tried to dismiss it as my imagination, but the unease persisted. The next day, I decided to explore the woods around the cabin. My footsteps crunched through the snow as I ventured deeper into the forest. That's when I stumbled upon an abandoned shack, hidden among the trees. It was dilapidated, and a sense of foreboding washed over me. Curiosity got the better of me, and I cautiously approached the shack. As I peered inside, my blood ran cold. The interior was filled with disturbing photographs, newspaper clippings, and scribbled notes. The images showed people who had gone missing in the area over the years, their faces marked with red crosses. The notes were incoherent ramblings, mentioning sacrifices and the need for more offerings. I fled from the shack, my heart pounding, and ran back to the cabin. Panic set in as I realized how far I was from help, and I didn't know if David would return anytime soon. I barricaded myself inside the cabin, clutching a kitchen knife for protection. The night was torturous. I heard eerie chants and whispers outside, and the cabin seemed to vibrate with an unnatural energy. I knew I had to escape, but the snowstorm outside had intensified, making it impossible to leave. I huddled in a corner, praying for morning to come. Hours later, the storm finally subsided. I grabbed my belongings and fled the cabin, leaving behind the keys. I ran through the woods, not looking back, until I reached a main road where a passing motorist helped me. I reported everything to the authorities, and they launched an investigation into David and the cabin. To this day, I shudder at the thought of what might have happened if I had stayed one more night. Craigslist had led me to a nightmare in the woods, a terrifying encounter that would forever haunt my memories. It was a stark reminder that sometimes, the allure of an online listing can hide unimaginable horrors. Story 3. It was a sweltering summer day when a friend first told me about a mysterious event advertised on Craigslist, an auction of rare and arcane objects, said to hold esoteric powers and hidden knowledge. As someone with a fascination for the occult and the unknown, my curiosity was piqued. Little did I know that my decision to attend this enigmatic event would unravel a web of secrets and mysteries beyond my wildest imagination. The Craigslist ad had appeared in the community section under the headline "The Occult Auction. Unveil the Mysteries." It promised a gathering of like-minded individuals, each with their own mystical items to sell, trade, or simply showcase. The ad did not disclose the location, only providing a contact email address, and emphasized that attendees should be open-minded and respectful of the occult's traditions. I decided to send an email expressing my interest, and a reply arrived promptly. It included a time and an address on the outskirts of town, far from the bustling city center. The event was scheduled for that very evening, adding an air of urgency to the proceedings. Arriving at the location, I found myself in a remote and dimly lit warehouse, its entrance hidden behind a heavy curtain. The place exuded an atmosphere of secrecy and anticipation. Inside, an eclectic group of individuals had already gathered, each carrying an item of mysterious significance. The auctioneer, a tall and enigmatic figure named Lucius, took center stage. Lucius was clad in dark robes and spoke with an air of authority, setting the tone for the evening. He explained the rules of the auction. The bidding would be conducted in an ancient, mystical language, and attendees were encouraged to bring their own offerings for trade. The atmosphere was electrifying, a fusion of excitement and trepidation. The first item up for bidding was a weathered, leather-bound grimoire said to contain forgotten spells. The room fell into a hushed reverence as attendees began to chant in the mysterious language, offering items of their own in exchange. The bidding escalated quickly, with participants passionately vying for the grimoire's secrets. In the end, it was sold to a woman in a hooded cloak, who clutched it tightly to her chest. As the auction progressed, I observed a diverse array of objects offered for sale: an antique dagger rumored to have once belonged to a notorious sorcerer, a crystal ball said to reveal glimpses of the future, and a vial of shimmering liquid believed to bestow immortality. The fervor of the crowd was intoxicating, and I found myself drawn deeper into the world of the occult. My own interest was piqued by an ornate, obsidian amulet adorned with cryptic symbols. It emanated an undeniable aura of power, and I felt an inexplicable connection to it. As the bidding began, I hesitated for only a moment before entering the fray. The room erupted in the ancient chant, and I offered a small, antique mirror as my bid. To my surprise, the auctioneer's gaze settled on me, and he nodded in approval. The amulet was mine. As I held it in my hands, I felt an overwhelming surge of energy, as though the amulet itself had chosen me. The auction continued into the late hours of the night, and the items grew increasingly esoteric. Occultists, mystics, and seekers of the unknown congregated, driven by their shared desire for hidden knowledge and supernatural artifacts. One of the most remarkable items was a peculiar, ornate puzzle box rumored to contain the secrets of the universe. Bidding for it escalated to a fever pitch, with attendees offering cherished possessions, rare manuscripts, and even promises of future services. In the end, the puzzle box was acquired by a mysterious figure who vanished into the night without a word. As the event drew to a close, I couldn't help but marvel at the mystical journey I had embarked upon. The amulet I had acquired felt like a key to a hidden realm, and I was eager to explore its mysteries. However, my fascination with the occult would soon lead me down an even stranger and more unsettling path. In the days that followed the auction, I began to experience vivid dreams and strange occurrences. I would wake in the middle of the night, my surroundings bathed in an eerie, otherworldly light. The amulet, which I kept on my bedside table, seemed to glow with an inner fire. During my waking hours, I delved into the amulet's history, discovering that it had once belonged to a renowned occultist who had vanished mysteriously after unlocking its powers. It was said to possess the ability to open portals to other dimensions and grant visions of the past and future. As I experimented with the amulet, its effects became increasingly unpredictable. I witnessed glimpses of shadowy figures and cryptic symbols, and I heard whispers in languages unknown to me. The boundaries between reality and the supernatural blurred, and I began to doubt my own sanity. Desperate for answers, I sought out experts in the occult and paranormal. They warned me of the dangers of dabbling in forces beyond my understanding and advised me to rid myself of the amulet. But my connection to it had grown too strong, and I was unwilling to part with the source of my newfound knowledge. One night, as I gazed into the amulet, I felt a sudden pull, a sensation of being drawn into its depths. I hesitated for a moment before succumbing to the irresistible urge. The world around me dissolved into a swirling vortex of colors and shapes, and I found myself in a realm of incomprehensible beauty and terror. The landscape was a surreal dreamscape, with towering crystalline structures and shifting landscapes that defied the laws of physics. In the distance, I saw shadowy figures cloaked in darkness, their eyes glowing with malevolence. They beckoned me closer, their whispers growing louder and more insistent. As I approached, I realized that the figures were ancient beings of unimaginable power. They revealed to me the secrets of the universe, cosmic knowledge that shattered my understanding of reality. They spoke of forgotten civilizations, ancient prophecies, and the true nature of existence itself. But with their revelations came a terrible price. I felt myself becoming entangled in a web of darkness, my identity and sanity slipping away. The beings demanded my allegiance, promising me power and immortality in exchange for my servitude. In that moment of reckoning, I made a choice. I severed my connection to the amulet, breaking free from the nightmarish realm and returning to the mundane world. The amulet, its power diminished, fell from my hand and shattered into pieces. The ordeal had taken its toll on me, both physically and mentally. I had glimpsed the unfathomable mysteries of the occult, but I had also experienced the dangers of delving too deep into the unknown. The amulet's fragments were scattered, lost to time and space, and I knew that some secrets were better left undiscovered. To this day, I carry the scars of my encounter with the occult, a reminder of the thin line between curiosity and obsession, and the perils of venturing too far into the realms of the supernatural. The Craigslist auction had opened a door to a world of mysteries and terrors beyond imagination, and I had been forever changed by the experience.